So the stage has properties of width and height, and we can access those. I'm just going to type them in right now, but this isn't how I will access. I just want to show them to you. Stage. We have to say stage dot. Anytime we're referencing a property of something, we say the object dot and then the property we're referencing. In this case, we're referencing my stage width. So stage.stage width, and its corresponding value of stage.stage height. Those are the two properties of the stage that we will be accessing to try to control the movement of our object. The movement controls, constraints that we will be looking for will go into the center frame loop. We can construct those using if statements. So we're going to say if dude's x position is at a certain place, then allow something to happen, or if it's at a different place, allow something to happen. So it starts out with y, so I guess we'll start out with y values first. So if dude dot y, so minus equals 5 will make him go up, because 0, 0 is the top left-hand corner of my document. So as the numbers get smaller, I go up. As they get smaller on the x, they go to the left. So minus 5 means it's moving up. So if my y is greater than 0, now the formatting gets wonky because we're going to have an if inside an if, but if I hit auto format, it moves things over so we can see it a little bit clearer. So if dude's y is greater than 0, then if I press up, he will move up. So now I can try this and find out. Doesn't stop at the bottom. Go, 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 go. Boom. Boom. Now we can't move off screen. So now if I'm moving downward at this point, if dude.y is less than stage.stage height, and we want him to move down. So I put in my extra curly brace, hit the auto format. Okay, so now this, theoretically, if I have done everything correctly and am lucky, moves down. Now you may notice he's moving down and mostly going off screen, but as long as I hold down and I'm holding it, he's still one click away from being on. So at this point, I'm pretty close, except for the fact that I need to compensate for his height based on his registration point. Dude's registration point is going to be in his top left corner. So that is his 0, 0. I could center him, or I can just modify my perimeter adjustments based on his height and width, which is just as easy as changing the artwork, in my opinion. So we don't want to go all the way down on the stage height. We want to go as long as his y is less than the stage height minus dude.height. That's going to now limit it to, instead of the full height of 400, it will be 400 minus whatever his height is, 100 or something like that. And it will then stop his movement at that point. So now if I test this again, go down, boom. Go all the way up, boom.
So if you hold shift, will it go 10 pixels at a time?
Nope, because we've provided no programming for how we want it to interpret shift. But we could put a combination that if shift is down and if the arrow is pressed, the movement speed instead of 5 becomes, say, 50. That's totally doable. Yeah, we'll be doing things like that. Currently, my dude stops at 0 on the Y, 0 is on the X's. So I'm going to worry just about the X's for the time being. And then I'll worry about some Y's in a little bit. When I look at the X's, instead of saying 0, I'm going to say 100. And instead of saying the width of the stage minus his width, minus 100. So to see the change now he only moves part way. So when that occurs, the tricky part now is we want to set him up to have, instead of the guy moving at this point, we want to try to move the background. So this is going to take some thinking about the order that we want to make this change occur on it. Because currently I say when he's at greater than 100 and is less than the width of the stage minus his width minus 100. So that kind of creates that box at 100 from left and 100 from the right margins. So now I've set up margins. But when I hit the margin, I want to then trigger that the background can start moving. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky to try and figure out the optimal way of including this in the code. So currently, I have it set up that when the dude hits one border or hits the other border, he can only move when he hasn't hit that border. So that's effectively saying if I'm within that window. So we want the occasions when he's at that limit or really close to that limit. But we also need to know that that key is being pressed. So because we don't want the background to keep moving when he hits that limit if he lets go of the key. So what this is going to create will be something along the lines of if the dude.x is going to be, if we put it really close to it, less than, so I'm going to put it when it's really close. So two movements away from the x, because each time I press the key, it moves 5, so 2. If he's less than 110, and left pressed is true. I'll just write it out in its entirety for now. Then at this point I can refer to my background, which I believe I gave an instance name of space. Space. It's trying to go CS 5.5 once, your curly braces on the next line, so I'm trying to adopt that as my new method. It's hard for me because habits die hard. Space dot x. So if he's moving left, we want the space to go to the right. So if I'm lucky, this will work. It keeps going for a while. But now we've identified a problem. We need to put a limiter on the background. Or we need to make a looping background, which we're not going to get into right now, because that opens a whole different can of worms. Because a looping background, you have to design our work specifically so that it has at each end of it, then it completes the space. Either you can have two pieces of artwork, or you have to, when you get to the end, then it has to line up with the end of the other one, and you have to immediately loop it over, but then you repeat. So you can either move the background or you need two. So you're always kind of flip-flopping. And there's reasons to do both. It's kind of whatever works for you. We might look at that next time. But now we can see that works. But we do need a limiter. And we can say on this one, if space dot x is less than or equal to 0, because it started off screen. So only when it's off screen. Going back to, if we look at this zoomed way out, we'll see that the stage is here. So its x position is right here. Its current x is minus 628. So until it hits 0, it will keep moving. Okay, so apparently that moved it a little bit too far, so we might want to tweak that. Oh, because of the 0.8 and what position it was at, so we can do a little tweaking on there. Instead of 0, I'll say minus 5. That should be enough to keep it on screen. Now I can repeat this process for moving to the right as well. And change it so when the dude is, the fact that I'm going to repeat this number again would indicate to me that I might want to assign it to a variable, because that's a lot of extra typing. If I assign a variable, I can just reference that variable reference. So there is a philosophy of programming where you actually have no numbers in your code. All numbers are assigned as variables, and then in your code you use those variables, because chances are anytime you use a number once, you're probably going to use it again 2, 3, 4, or 5 times. And if you want to change its value, you have to change it 2, 3, 4, or 5 times. If it's a variable, you just change the variable value and you're done. So that is a philosophy. Disadvantage is that can make your code harder to read because it's a lot of words. Most people find a happy medium. So now this is when my x is, when dude's x is greater than the width of the stage minus his width minus 110, and right pressed. See, I like my code better where it was just left, right, up, down. But since we started with this one, we'll keep that coding in there. Now, then we will say if spaces x is I either have to do some math or move it and see what number it works out to be. But we can see it's approximate 1812 minus 628. $1184. Is less than So I think these numbers are going to work. You've seen the width of the object minus and its starting X position. Oh no, that's not right at all. It'd be 1812 minus the width of the stage, which is 550. So that would be 12 something. Oh, well, close enough. Right, now I have to know. So when it's at 1264, it's gone off stage. Gives me a 10 pixel buffer. So this theoretically, so when if space is greater than, all right, and okay. Now one more point that was brought up is, how can we make our character flip left or right when you're moving? And we'll look at that in just a second. So currently I have under keyboard up and keyboard down. When I press, well, I don't care about up and down, I want left and right. But when I press one of those keys, what I could make happen is I can now set the Y rotation of the head, or of my thing. I can set its Y rotation. And Y rotation means I'm rotating around the Y or the vertical axis, which causes horizontal flipping. So I can change that when I press the left and right key. So when I press down, it's true. And if I press the other one, it flips it back the other way. So, see, it is called dude in this example. So dude dot rotation Y equals, and I just have to remember the values for this. Trying to remember if this is in degrees. I think it is, because we do have a, there used to be like a flip X and a flip, or flip H and a flip V option that you could do too, but typically use the rotation now that we have rotation on the X, Y, and Z axis. And we want to rotate it back to 0 when we do right. So I believe those are the correct numbers. We'll find out. Now you can notice what's happening here. He's rotating around his registration point, which gives him that nice sense of flipping. Depending on your artwork, that could be a lot of, because notice how it makes it look like he's getting in motion right away. So that's kind of nice, but if that's too troubling or too much, then at that point you might want to change his registration point or do a position adjustment as well. So I mean, there's a couple options available.